Humans launched their insane surprise invasion of the Zenari Empire, using sheer suicidal audacity, reckless fury, and unthinkable bloodlust. The young Zenari students shivered in the dimly lit classroom, their focus locked onto the weathered face of Altair, the elderly historian about to recount the infamous tale. The Zenari observed humanity for centuries, Altair began, his voice cracking with age. Our advanced technology and telepathic abilities made humans seem primitive. Constant wars, no unity. He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. Prime Minister Zorax and the High Council declared humans too violent to contact. We watched from afar, secure in our superiority. Altair's eyes narrowed, but everything changed when Captain Louis Morgan's ship, the TSS Valiant, found our secret outpost on Zephyrus 6. That lunatic opened fire immediately, destroyed the whole base. Gasps filled the room. The Zenari had never suffered an unprovoked attack. Our people were outraged. Zorax bowed to pressure and declared war, vowing to exterminate the human threat. But we badly underestimated their capacity for warfare and sheer audacity, and that nearly doomed our entire civilization. Altair's gaze bore into the students, ancient eyes smoldering. Now let me tell you just how catastrophically we miscalculated, and how close we came to total annihilation at the hands of a species we arrogantly thought inferior. The human invasion was an insane plan from the start, but that's exactly why it almost worked. Tension electrified the room as Altair began his chilling account. The students, wondering if they'd even be alive, had history unfolded differently. Altair surveyed the room. Not a single student dared to breathe. They all leaned forward in their seats, hanging on his every word. The elderly Zenari continued in his gravelly voice. After Captain Morgan massacred our secret outpost, we expected to squash the humans like insects. The High Council dispatched 10,000 of our finest troops to Zephyrus 6 to wipe out their meager colony. Altair shook his head ruefully. But we charged headfirst into a meticulously planned death trap. That demon Morgan had turned the whole settlement into a fortress with only 100 men. Minefields shredded our first wave before they even reached the perimeter. Electrified razor-wire fences stopped our second push cold. The students flinched as Altair slammed a fist on his desk. And then there was Morgan himself, clad in a fearsome exoskeleton suit wielding plasma cannons. He and his soldiers would appear like ghosts, blast our troopers to smoldering pieces, then vanish back into the shadows. For months it went on like this, an unending nightmare. Altair's eyes glazed over, as if viewing the carnage firsthand. Over 8,000 proud Zenari warriors fell into Morgan's sadistic traps and ambushes. He even captured a squad alive, tortured and executed them, made us watch the footage, sapped our will to fight. The old Zenari's shoulders slumped. It took 3 months to silence the guns on Zephyrus 6. When it was over, the planet's surface was carpeted with Zenari dead. A few smoking craters were all that remained of our fleet's capital ships. It was our most humiliating defeat. The students sat motionless, horrified by the gruesome details of the battle. Altair looked at them gravely. After the loss, our leadership finally understood what we were truly up against. No longer would we underestimate the humans' capacity for war. The High Council changed tactics, ordering a naval blockade to starve the Terran colonies and choke their expansion. Altair shifted his focus to the battle that raged in space above Zephyrus 6. Even as Morgan's men held the line on the ground, the real test was yet to come. The Zenari had over 500 warships blockading the planet against just a few dozen human vessels. Victory seemed impossible. The students shook their heads in disbelief. 500 against a few dozen. The humans never stood a chance. But you underestimate human guile, Altair said, wagging a finger. Captain Morgan had a trick up his sleeve. He sent boarding parties to capture several Zenari ships. Then he used those ships to sneak the rest of his fleet into the heart of the blockade, undetected. Murmurs rippled through the classroom. The daring of it, the sheer audacity. Once his ships were in position, Altair continued, Morgan had his men plant powerful bombs on the Zenari vessels, all linked, all set to blow at once. And when they did, the old Zenari closed his eyes, as if he could still see the blinding flashes. Over half our fleet gone in an instant, consumed by flames, the rest thrown into chaos, easy prey for the humans and their superior ships. A heavy silence hung over the room. The young Zenari tried to process the scale of the disaster. Admiral Zaxa, to his credit, didn't flee, Altair said. He ordered his remaining ships to ram the humans, a last desperate bid for victory, but Morgan saw it coming. He had his fleet scatter and... Altair made a great crashing sound, smashing his fists together. Our ships collided with each other instead, tore themselves apart. The debris rained down on Zephyrus 6 for days. The old Zenari's voice trembled with grief. In the end, every Zenari vessel was destroyed, every single one. I watched from the surface as they burned up in the atmosphere, like a meteor shower, almost beautiful if it wasn't so horrific. Altair brought a shaking hand to his face, and the humans, they cheered, celebrated as if they hadn't just committed mass murder, as if they hadn't just slaughtered thousands. That was the moment we realized what we were truly up against, that humans would do anything to win and we were just another obstacle to overcome. Altair's wrinkled hands clenched into fists as he recounted the aftermath of that fateful battle. With the Zenari fleet reduced to cosmic dust, Admiral Morgan wasted no time pressing his advantage. He led devastating raids on our colonies, always one step ahead. Our defenses crumbled before his lightning strikes. The student's eyes widened at the thought of more Zenari defeats. Altair continued, his voice laced with old resentment. But Morgan's greatest weapon was his cunning. He turned our own subject races against us, the Kazkat-K chief among them, those damned insectoids and their tunneling. We never saw them coming. Altair shook his head ruefully. Morgan blasted propaganda across the airwaves, stoking panic and unrest on 100 worlds. Zenari turned against Zenari in the chaos. Our empire came apart at the seams. The old Zenari's voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. But the final blow came on our homeworld. Morgan infiltrated the central computer, turning our robot servants into killers. Our cities burned as the machines rampaged, countless lives lost in the mayhem. A palpable dread settled over the classroom. Altair's tone turned bitter. In desperation, the High Council unleashed chemical weapons on rebelling planets. Entire species wiped out. Civilians massacred in the streets, but still the resistance grew. Humans and Kazkat-K fanning the flames. Altair's shoulders slumped, as if the weight of history pressed down upon him. The Zenari Empire, once the mightiest civilization in the galaxy, teetered on the brink of annihilation, and Admiral Morgan's forces closed in for the kill, seizing our core worlds one by one. Trillions of Zenari faced a bleak future under human rule. Altair's face darkened as he turned to the final fateful chapter of the war. In a last desperate assault, Admiral Morgan himself led a massive human armada to strike at the very heart of the Zenari, their homeworld, Zen Prime. The attack caught the Zenari off guard, their defenses already stretched thin. The elderly Zenari's voice quavered slightly. The battle in orbit was catastrophic. Morgan's ships tore through the Zenari lines, blasting defense platforms to molten slag. Zenari dreadnoughts burned and broke apart. But the humans paid dearly too. Shattered hulks of their cruisers drifted among the wreckage. Altair paused, as if steeling himself. On the planet below it was even worse. Human dropships disgorged thousands of Marines into the capital. Fighting raged street to street, building to building. Zenari militia and civilians alike were gunned down without mercy. His tone grew hushed. In those final desperate hours, the Zenari High Council unleashed a weapon they'd kept hidden, a planet-killer bomb, unlike anything seen before or since, a device to crack a world in half. Altair's eyes squeezed shut. I can still see the flash burning even through my closed lids, a light to sear the soul, and then a roar, a sound to shatter the heavens. In an instant, Zen Prime, our shining gem, burst apart. His voice shook. Billions of my people dead. A whole world murdered. The shockwave scoured the nearest colonies to barren rock. Even the human fleet couldn't outrun it entirely. Ships flung about like toys in a hurricane, escape pods tumbling end over end. A single tear escaped Altair's eye. Admiral Morgan's flagship couldn't get clear in time, that devil of a man, killed by his own hubris, his obsession with our destruction. The classroom was utterly silent. Not one student dared to breathe. What followed, Altair continued, was almost worse than the death of our homeworld. We were a broken people, our cities turned to cinders. Those who survived fled to the stars, a once great civilization reduced to beggars and vagabonds. He shifted his gaze across the room. The humans fared little better in the end. Losing Morgan and so much of their fleet gutted their war machine. The Terran worlds fell to infighting, old rivalries and ambitions resurfacing. Their alliance with the Kaz-Katike and other rebels crumbled. Altair's tone turned bitter. In the end, there were no victors, only corpses and rubble, a galaxy of shattered worlds and broken dreams, so many species snuffed out, ecologies ravaged beyond recovery. He leaned forward, his ancient eyes blazing. This is the cost of war without wisdom, of hatred allowed to fester. The Zanari learned this lesson in the most painful way imaginable, and the humans, they too paid a terrible price for their bloodlust. The old Zanari slumped back, as if the weight of memory threatened to crush him. Let this be a warning to you, children of a new age, a lesson paid for in the blood of billions. Seek to understand those who are different rather than destroy them. Embrace compassion over fear. Find unity in diversity. The path of war leads only to the grave. Altair watched as the students filed out, each one struggling to process the tale of tragedy and ruin, the horrors of the past echoing into the present, a warning for the future, if only they would heed it. The old teacher sat alone in the empty classroom, ghosts of the dead swirling in his thoughts. So many lives lost, so much potential squandered, all for pride and fury, in the end signifying nothing. He could only pray that this new generation would be wiser, that they could learn from the mistakes of their forebears, or else the Zanari's fall and humanity's self-destruction might only be the first movement in a longer symphony of sorrow. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.